My name is Nicole Fields. I'm 32 years old, and until recently, I thought I had the kind of life most people would call stable. I had a solid job as a project manager, enough to pay the bills and buy us a modest home in a decent neighborhood. For a long time, that was enough for me. I thought it was enough for him, too. Daniel, 31. My husband of 8 years, used to be the kind of man who laughed at bad sitcoms with me on Friday nights and fell asleep holding my hand after we'd eaten takeout pad thai. He was warm, ordinary mine. But things changed. It started when Daniel got that new job at a boutique. Not just any boutique, but the kind that didn't bother with price tags where they offered champagne while you browsed. That's where he met them Carter and his glittering entourage. The kind of people who summered in the Hamptons and spoke of yachts as if they were weekend toys. At first I thought it was harmless. Daniel came home with new phrases. We're summering. It's all about sprezzatura, words he'd never said before, rolling off his tongue like he'd been rehearsing in a mirror. He started comparing. My Toyota Corolla was practical, while Carter's Porsche was a work of art. My carefully chosen jewelry was sweet, while Carter's gifts to his girlfriend were timeless. I tried not to care. I told myself love wasn't about competition. But little by little, I felt him slipping away, like I was holding on to someone who no longer wanted to be held. Then came the Vanderbilt summer party. I knew the moment we walked into that sprawling glass and steel mansion that I was prey in the lion's den. Everyone looked like they had stepped straight out of a magazine spread, tailored suits, gleaming dresses, laughter sharp as champagne bubbles. My best dress suddenly felt like a high school project compared to theirs. Daniel didn't notice me shrinking. Or maybe he did, and didn't care. His attention was locked on Carter, orbiting him like a planet desperate for its sun. I tried to blend into the background, clutching a flute of something that tasted more like vinegar than wine. My pulse hammered as Carter swaggered over Daniel, trailing behind him. Nicole, Carter said smoothly, eyes glinting like a shark's. He looked me up and down with a smile that was all blade, no warmth. That's an interesting choice of dress. Daniel chuckled beside him. She tries her best, he said lightly, like I wasn't standing right there. The words sliced deeper than I expected. He'd never humiliated me in public before, not until that moment. Stop, Daniel, I murmured, my face burning. But he wasn't finished. His smile curved into something cruel, rehearsed. Sweetheart, Carter's just used to a different league of taste. You know how it is. And then in front of everyone, he leaned close and whispered loud enough for the surrounding circle to hear. I look at him, what he has, what he represents, and I look at you. It's just not the same league. The room tilted. For a second, I thought I'd drop my glass. The humiliation wasn't sharp like a slap. It was slow, a burn spreading under my skin. Conversations around us carried on, but I felt their eyes, their smirks, their delight at my downfall. I wanted to scream, to cry, to ask him how he could throw away years of love for the approval of strangers. But in that instant, something inside me snapped clean. Instead, I simply said, okay, just that, one word. And then I turned, walked away, and left Daniel standing there. The silence that followed me out felt heavier than any insult. What Daniel didn't realize was that in humiliating me so publicly, he'd given me something back: clarity. And clarity once found doesn't let you go. The morning after the Vanderbilt party, Daniel was gone. No slammed doors, no fight, just silence. His side of the closet half empty, a suitcase missing, and a folded note on the kitchen counter written in his tight, slanted handwriting. I'm staying at Carter's guest house for a while. Don't wait up. That was it. 8 years reduced to one line. I stood there barefoot on the cold tile, staring at the note while the refrigerator hummed beside me. I wanted to feel rage. I wanted to cry until I couldn't breathe. But instead I felt nothing. A vast, hollow calm, like my body had gone into shock. The house was too quiet after that. At night I'd lie awake listening for the familiar rhythm of Daniel's footsteps pacing when he was restless, or the way he'd hum under his breath in the shower. Now there was only the hum of the fridge, the occasional creak of pipes. The silence pressed down like a weight. I didn't smash our wedding photos. I didn't drown myself in wine. I just went numb. Days blurred. I went to work, came home reheated leftovers, scrolled through mindless TV without hearing a word. The absence of his presence was worse than his betrayal. Then the text started. Not from him, he was too busy parading his new life online, but from his new circle. Nicole, I heard what happened. I'm so sorry. You two were just different worlds. Carter is more Daniel's speed. XOXO, Stephanie. Hey, don't be upset. It's probably for the best. You'll find someone who fits you. Melanie. Each message was polished with fake sympathy, but underneath it, I could hear the laughter, the thrill of gossip. They didn't care about me. I was just the tragic subplot in their champagne-soaked drama. I deleted every message without responding. The only person who showed up for me was Mia, my best friend since college. She didn't send me hollow texts. She arrived on Friday night with a six-pack and a tub of mint chocolate chip ice cream, dropping both onto my coffee table with a thud. "You look like death," she said, plopping onto my couch and pulling the lid off the ice cream. "Thanks," I muttered, curling up under a blanket. She handed me a spoon. "Listen, you didn't fail Nicole. He did. He traded a diamond for cubic zirconia. That's on him." I let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "A diamond. Please, I'm more like costume jewelry." "Then you're the kind people actually wear because it means something," she shot back. "Not the flashy crap that falls apart in 2 weeks." Her words pierced the numbness like a pin through fabric. For the first time in days, I felt something, not rage, not despair, but the faintest spark of defiance. Still, the nights were hard. Lying in bed, I'd replay his words, "Not the same league." I'd stare at the ceiling and wonder when exactly I had stopped being enough. I thought about calling him, demanding an explanation, begging him to see me. But every time my hand hovered over my phone, I remembered the look in his eyes at that party, the hunger for status, the way he glowed in Carter's shadow. He hadn't just left me. He'd left himself behind too, chasing an illusion. And somewhere deep down I knew chasing after him would mean erasing myself completely. So instead I sat in the silent spooned ice cream straight from the carton and let the stillness wrap around me like a cocoon. It was the loneliest place I'd ever been. But it was also where the first cracks of something else began to form. Not yet hope, not yet strength, just the quiet awareness that I was still here, breathing, existing. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough to start again. The silence that once pressed down on me like a weight became something else after a few weeks. It stopped feeling like a tomb and started feeling like space. Empty, yes, lonely, sometimes crushing, but space nonetheless. And in that space I began to breathe again. It didn't happen dramatically. There was no epiphany, no triumphant movie montage. It started small. One morning, I woke up and realized I hadn't eaten anything but takeout and ice cream in days. My stomach churned. I walked into the kitchen, pulled out a dusty cookbook from the shelf, and tried to make scrambled eggs. They burned, stuck to the pan like glue. I cursed, laughed, and tried again. The second attempt was edible. Barely. But it was mine. That night, for the first time since Daniel left, I felt the faintest flicker of pride. From there, little things followed. I joined a gym, not one of those glittering clubs Daniel and his friends adored, but the no-frills one down the street. The kind that smelled faintly of rubber mats and disinfectant wipes. At first, I hated every second. My legs ached. My arms trembled. Sweat stung my eyes. But there was something grounding about putting one foot in front of the other on a treadmill, something honest about muscles burning from effort I chose. Each mile was mine. Each rep was mine. At work, too, things shifted. For years, I had rushed through my projects, always distracted, always glancing at the clock, worried about what mood Daniel would be in when I got home. But now, there was only me. I threw myself into a major project that had been languishing, pouring in ideas I'd been too timid to suggest before. I stayed late, not because I had to, but because I wanted to see what I was capable of without someone else's shadow looming over me. One afternoon, my boss, Brenda, stopped by my desk. She was sharp-eyed, blunt, the kind of woman who noticed everything. "You've been on fire lately, Nicole," she said, tapping her pen against a stack of reports I'd submitted. "Everything okay at home?" I hesitated. The old me would have deflected, lied, kept my private pain hidden, but something in her steady gaze told me she'd see through it anyway. "Better than okay," I said quietly. "Just focused." Her lips curved into a knowing smile. "Keep it up. People higher up are noticing." I blinked at her, stunned. For the first time in months, the word future didn't feel like a threat. Meanwhile, Mia kept showing up, dragging me to trivia nights and insisting I join her and her boyfriend for board games. "You can't sit in that house forever," she told me one evening, shoving a glass of wine into my hand. "You'll turn into a ghost. And ghosts don't get promotions or revenge bodies." "Revenge bodies," I arched a brow. She grinned. "Nothing says screw you like looking fabulous when they expect you to crumble." I laughed for real that night, the sound startling in its freedom. But it wasn't about revenge. Not really. It was about rediscovering myself in the quiet spaces Daniel had left behind. And yet, in those quiet spaces, I also began to hear whispers. Little things, an overheard conversation at the gym, a comment on social media that suggested Carter's wealth wasn't as bulletproof as it seemed. Rumors of debt of family money that might not be flowing anymore. I tucked the whispers away. I didn't dwell on them. But part of me couldn't help wondering if Daniel had traded me for a dream that was already crumbling. For now, though, it didn't matter. Because for the first time in a long time, my life, small, quiet, ordinary, was mine. And that was enough. It started with a text. Unknown number. Hey, heard you got that promotion. Congrats. That's really great. I stared at the message thumb hovering over the screen. No name, but I didn't need one. The tone, the fake casualness, the forced warmth, it was unmistakably Daniel's. I deleted it without replying. 2 days later, another number popped up. Nicole, I made a mistake, a huge one. Carter, everything he said was a lie. Please, can we talk? My chest tightened, not with longing, but with an odd kind of annoyance. How dare he think he could walk back into my life like nothing had happened? That he could humiliate me, abandon me, and then expect me to be his safety net when the glitter turned to dust. I took a screenshot, dropped it into a folder I labeled Remember, and blocked the number. The messages kept coming, each one from a new number, each one swinging wildly between guilt, desperation, and anger. I miss you. What we had was real. So you're just going to ignore me after everything we had. The least you could do is be a decent human being. That last one made me laugh out loud, a sharp, bitter sound that echoed in my empty kitchen. Decent human being. From the man who compared me to Carter's wealth like I was some cheap knockoff handbag. No, the final blow didn't come from Daniel himself, but from his mother. She called me one Sunday afternoon, her voice dripping with syrupy concern. Nicole, sweetheart, she cooed, as if she hadn't spent years favoring Daniel in every argument. How are you holding up? I'm fine, Mrs. Peterson. What do you need? I just spoke to Daniel, she pressed on, ignoring my flat tone. He's a mess. That Carter character was a monster, a complete fraud. He lied about everything, his money, his family, all of it. Daniel didn't know. He was tricked. You can't hold a little mistake against him forever, dear. You two had so many good years. Her words slithered through the line like smoke trying to suffocate me with guilt. Once they might have worked. Once I might have bent softened, told myself Daniel deserved forgiveness. But not now. I took a slow breath, steadying the tremor of rage that wanted to break free. Mrs. Peterson, I said, my voice calm, almost gentle. Daniel and I are divorced. My obligation to him and to you is 0. Please do not contact me again. The silence on the other end was delicious. When she finally sputtered, well, I hung up. The click of the call ending felt like a door slamming shut. For the first time since that awful night at the party, I felt clean. Daniel wasn't crawling back because he loved me. He was crawling back because his shiny dream had shattered, and he wanted me to glue the pieces together. But I wasn't his glue anymore. I wasn't anything to him anymore. And that truth was more powerful than any revenge could ever be. The news came in fragments, whispers, carried by people who once couldn't stop bragging about Carter. First, it was Mia sliding her phone across the cafe table toward me one afternoon. Look, she said. Recognize anyone. On the screen was a grainy tabloid-style photo. Carter looking less like a golden god and more like a man cornered. His hair was unkempt, his suit ill-fitting, his eyes hollow. The caption, Businessman Carter Reynolds faces mounting debt allegations. I scrolled through the article, pulse quickening. The mansion rented, the cars leased. The yacht and the villa in Saint-Tropez fabrications stitched together through photos and bravado. And his empire nothing but credit card debt and smoke. For weeks the gossip multiplied. Carter's family had cut him off years ago. His so-called friends, the same people who once looked at Daniel like he was royalty, just for being in Carter's orbit, scattered the moment the champagne stopped flowing. And Daniel, he wasn't collateral damage, he was a casualty. One evening, Mia leaned back in her chair, swirling her wine as she delivered the final piece. He's living in a one-bedroom apartment on the east side now. Lost his job at the boutique. Word is Carter dropped him the moment things got ugly. I stared at the candle flickering between us. My chest tightened, not with joy, not with pity, with something sharper, clarity. Daniel hadn't left me for Carter. He had left me for the idea of Carter, the illusion of wealth, the performance of prestige. And now that illusion had collapsed, leaving him stranded with nothing. Once I might have pictured this moment, dreamed of confronting him, of making him see what he'd thrown away. But now I didn't feel the urge. I didn't need to stand in front of him and say, I told you so. because the truth was already written all over his life in the eviction notice taped to Carter's mansion door, in the hushed whispers of friends turned strangers, in the silence of a phone that no longer buzzed with invitations. Daniel had chosen the glitter, and when the glitter washed off, all that remained was rust. I didn't celebrate, I didn't gloat, I just sat back, breathed in the calm air of my own small, steady life, and thought, sometimes karma doesn't roar, sometimes it whispers, and when it whispers, it's even louder. But deep down I knew this wasn't over, because men like Daniel, desperate and titled, don't just vanish into the ruins they've made. They crawl back one last time, and I had a feeling that moment was coming. 6 months after the Vanderbilt party, Mia dragged me to an art gallery opening. Her coworker's cousin was showing pottery, or maybe abstract paintings. I wasn't listening. I just knew I had no excuse to say no, and besides, I'd bought myself a new suit dress. Not for Daniel, not for revenge, for me. The gallery buzzed with the kind of people who pretended to debate art, but really just wanted to be photographed beside it. I sipped sparkling water and let the chatter wash over me. And then I felt it, that prickling at the back of my neck, the sensation of being watched. I turned and froze. Daniel, but not the Daniel I remembered. This one looked smaller. His expensive clothes had been traded for a too-thin jacket. His hair was messy, his skin pale. He carried himself like a man dragging chains, invisible to everyone but him. Our eyes met. His widened with shock, then softened into something desperate. Hope. He wove through the crowd until he stood before me. His cologne was gone, replaced with the faint, cloying scent of cheap drugstore spray. Nicole. His voice cracked like he hadn't said my name in months. You look incredible. I gave him a polite smile. Neutral. Detached. Hello, Daniel. He flinched at my tone, but pressed on words, tumbling. I was a fool. Carter. He used me. They all did. It was lies, all of it. But us, what we had, that was real. I miss you. I miss us. I said nothing. Silence stretched between us, thick and heavy. Around us, the party carried on, oblivious. He swallowed hard, searching my face. Can we try again? Finally, I spoke. Calm. Final. That chapter is closed, Daniel. I've moved on. You should too. His expression cracked. Hope curdled into anger. You don't even care, do you? After everything, not even a little. I held his gaze utterly unshaken. No, I don't. The truth hung there, sharp and undeniable. For the first time he looked at me, not as the woman he'd abandoned, but as a stranger. And maybe that's all I had ever been to him in the end, someone to use until something shinier came along. I straightened, smoothing my dress. I hope you find what you're looking for, Daniel. Excuse me. I turned and walked away toward Mia, who pretended to study a lopsided vase but kept one eye on me. I slipped back into her orbit as if nothing had happened. Behind me, Daniel didn't follow. Later, Mia told me he stood there for a full minute, staring at the empty space I'd left behind before slinking out of the gallery alone. And that was the last time I ever saw him. The thing is, Daniel was wrong that night in Carter's mansion. I did understand. Perfectly. He wanted a life that sparkled on the outside, even if it was hollow within. And he got exactly what he asked for. Me, I chose something else. Something real. Quiet mornings, honest work. Friendships that weren't about status. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't